Millionaire pays his young black maid to spend his birthday with him and accidentally falls in love. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from today. Salem Vasconello stood by the big glass windows in his tall office building. He looked down at the busy city below. At 42 years old, he had everything. Lots of money, fancy cars, a huge house by the ocean, and a big business. But as he watched people walking together, talking and laughing, he felt empty inside. His assistant knocked on the door. "Mr. Vasconello, the board members are waiting for you in the meeting room." Calum nodded. His face became serious again. "Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes." When his assistant left, Calum checked his phone. No messages from friends or family, only business emails. His birthday was next week. He would be 43 years old. But there was no one who really cared about celebrating with him. Later that evening, Calum drove home. His big house was quiet and clean. He noticed a small car parked near the side entrance. His housekeeper was still here, even though it was late. Inside, the floors were shiny and the house smelled like fresh polish. He found Zaria in the kitchen, wiping the counters. She was 24 years old and always worked hard. Her curly hair was tied back, and she wore a simple uniform. "You're still here," Calum said, loosening his tie. Zaria looked up. "I'm sorry, Mr. Vasconello. The plumber took longer than expected. I'm just finishing now." Salem watched her. Unlike the people at work who wanted his money or power, Zaria was different. She just did her job. "It's fine," he said. "Is there anything to eat?" "I made some pasta earlier. It's in the fridge. I can warm it up for you." Salem nodded and sat at the kitchen counter. They sat in comfortable silence as Zaria moved around the kitchen. "Will you be home for your birthday next week?" Zaria asked as she placed the food in front of him. "I saw it on the calendar while cleaning." Calum looked up, surprised. "I don't celebrate my birthday." "Everyone should celebrate their birthday," she said. Then she paused. "Sorry, that's not my place to say." He looked at her. "Why do you think that?" Zaria shrugged. "Life is hard. A birthday is a reminder that you made it through another year. That should mean something." Calum thought about her words even after she left. He ate alone in his big kitchen. The only sound was the clock ticking and his fork clinking against the plate. The next morning, as Calum was leaving for work, he saw Zaria sorting the mail. "Good morning, Mr. Vasconello," she said. Instead of just nodding, he stopped. "Do you have plans next Friday evening?" Zaria looked confused. "Friday? My birthday," he explained. "Would you have dinner with me? I'll pay you." Her eyes widened. "Pay me for dinner?" $5,000, he said, "just to eat and talk." When she didn't answer, he added, $10,000. "Mr. Vasconello, I don't understand." Salem ran his hand through his dark hair. "I don't have anyone to have dinner with on my birthday. I'm offering to pay you to join me." Zaria's face changed. She looked like she felt sorry for him. He suddenly regretted asking. "Never mind, forget it," he said quickly. "Wait," she said. "I'll do it." Calum turned back. "You will?" She nodded. "Yes, but not for $10,000. That's too much for just dinner." "Money is nothing to me," he said. "But it matters to me," she replied firmly. $5,000 is more than enough." Selim studied her. Most people took his money without thinking twice. "Fine, $5,000, Friday at 8, we'll go to Loron." Zaria's eyes widened. Loron was a very fancy restaurant. I don't have anything to wear to a place like that." "Buy something," he said, pulling out his wallet and handing her money. "Consider it an advance." She hesitated before taking it. "Thank you, Mr. Vasconello." All week, Selim found himself wondering what Zaria would wear, what they would talk about. On Friday, he got home early, something he never did. At exactly 8, Zaria arrived. Salem almost didn't recognize her. She wore a simple but beautiful navy blue dress. Her hair was soft and curly, and she had light makeup on. "You look different," he said, feeling awkward. She smiled. "Thank you, I think." The drive to the restaurant was quiet. Inside, they were given the best table. Zaria looked a little nervous. Salem gently placed a hand on her back to guide her, but she flinched slightly. Once seated, an awkward silence fell. "Would you like wine?" he asked. "Yes, thank you." She looked at the menu with a small frown. "Everything is good here. Order whatever you like," Caleb said. After they ordered, he tried to think of what to say. He usually talked about work, but that didn't seem right. "How long have you been cleaning houses?" "Since I was 18, 6 years now." "Do you want to do that forever?" She looked slightly annoyed. "No, I'm saving for nursing school." "Why not become a doctor?" "Doctors diagnose, nurses care. I want to help people when they're scared and sick." Salem was surprised. "That's admirable." When their food arrived, Zaria took a bite and closed her eyes in appreciation. "This is incredible. Lauron has 3 Michelin stars." Zaria smiled. "I don't know what that means, but the food is amazing." Her honesty was refreshing. "Tell me about your family." "My mom died when I was 12. My aunt raised me." "I lost my parents young too," Caleb admitted. "My grandmother raised me, but she didn't really care." "I'm sorry," Zaria said. "Don't be. It was a long time ago." Still, losing family is hard. They talked for hours. Zaria told him about her dream of becoming a nurse. "How much do you still need?" Caleb asked. "About $20,000. I'm more than halfway there." "The $5,000 from tonight will help," he said. "Yes, it will. Thank you." When dessert arrived, Zaria said, "It's your birthday. You should make a wish." "I'm too old for that. No one is too old for wishes." Caleb closed his eyes and blew out the candle. He couldn't remember the last time he had done that. Back home, Caleb handed Zaria an envelope with the money. "Thank you for tonight." "Tonight." She took it. "Thank you for dinner." It was lovely. "Good night, Mr. Vasconello." "Caleb," he said suddenly. "My name is Caleb." She smiled. "Good night, Salem. Happy birthday." As she walked to her car, Caleb stood watching. The night had been special. Inside his quiet house, he loosened his tie. He opened his laptop, intending to check emails. Instead, he searched for nursing programs. Selim Vasconello was a very rich man. He worked with big amounts of money every day, so when he saw the cost of school, it seemed very small to him. But then he thought about Zaria. He remembered her smile when she talked about helping people. He thought about how she had told him to make a birthday wish, how she really listened when he spoke. It had been a long time since anyone had looked at him and seen just Caleb, not the millionaire businessman. He closed his laptop and thought, it was just one dinner, but now his big empty house felt even lonelier. He wanted more. More talks, more smiles, more moments where he felt like a real person, not just a man with money. But did Zaria want the same thing? And was this something he could buy? On Monday morning, Caleb sat in his office, but he couldn't focus on his work. He kept thinking about Zaria, her smile, her kindness. A knock on the door brought him back. "Mr. Vasconcello, your 10 meeting is here," his assistant said. Caleb nodded and pushed Zaria from his thoughts. He was being silly. She was just his employee, and he had paid her for her time. That was all. But when he got home that evening, he found himself looking for her. She had already finished cleaning and left for the day. The house was clean, the air smelled like lemon, and there were fresh flowers on the table. In the kitchen, he found a note next to a dish in the fridge. "Leftover lasagna from today's lunch. Just heat for 3 minutes." It was such a small thing, but Caleb smiled as he warmed up the food. The next morning, he stayed home longer, waiting until Zaria arrived. When she walked into the kitchen, she looked surprised to see him. "Good morning, Mr. Vasconcelos. You're still home?" "I have a late meeting," Caleb lied. "And I told you to call me Salem." She looked unsure. "That doesn't seem right while I'm working." "Why not?" he asked. "Because I work for you," she said, pulling out her cleaning supplies. "The lasagna was good," he said. She looked up and smiled a little. "I'm glad you liked it." "Where did you learn to cook?" "My aunt taught me the basics. The rest I learned from cooking shows and practice." She hesitated, not sure if she should keep talking or start cleaning. I enjoyed Friday night, Salem said. She stopped for a second, then nodded. I did too. Thank you again. I was thinking, he said. Maybe we could do it again? Zaria looked surprised. Another dinner? Salem nodded. I have a business event this Friday, a charity gala. I need a guest. Would you like to come? Would you be paying me again? She asked. Yes, he said, but suddenly paying her felt strange. Zaria thought for a moment. What would I need to do? Just be with me, talk to people, and be yourself. She raised an eyebrow. Be myself at a party with rich business people? They're just people, Salem said, but he knew that wasn't really true. Rich people, she corrected, with very different lives than mine. You managed fine at the restaurant. That was just you. This sounds like a whole room full of important people. Salem laughed. Fair enough, but I think you'll be great. She thought again, then nodded. All right, what should I wear? I can have my assistant arrange. No, she interrupted. I'll take care of it. Just tell me the time. 7. I'll pick you up. I'll meet you here, she said. I'll need to change after work. Calum left for his office, already 2 hours late. The whole week he found reasons to be home when Zaria was there. He asked about her day, her interests, her opinions. At first she seemed confused, but slowly she opened up. He learned she volunteered at a clinic, loved mystery books, and had a cat named Cosmo. These little things shouldn't have mattered, but they did. On Friday, Calum got home early. At 7, Zaria arrived with a garment bag. May I use a guest room to change? Of course, any room you like. Salem waited, pacing. When she finally came downstairs, he stared. She wore a simple, beautiful emerald green dress. Her hair was up, her makeup soft and natural. You look stunning, he said. She blushed. Thank you. I hope it's okay for the event. More than okay. You'll be the most beautiful woman there. The gala was at a fancy hotel. As they walked in, Zaria looked nervous. Calum put a hand on her back. Just relax, he whispered. You'll do great. And she did. She talked with people, asked smart questions, and impressed everyone. Your date is delightful, said Mrs. Winters, a businessman's wife. Yes, she is, Calum said, watching Zaria talk to a hospital chairman. How long have you been seeing her? Calum hesitated. Baz, we're still getting to know each other. She's very different from your usual type, Mrs. Winters said. Calum saw a man named Marcus Reed talking to Zaria. Reed was known for being rude to women. Calum quickly went to Zaria's side. There you are, he said, wrapping an arm around her. I've been looking for you. She was surprised but leaned into him. We were talking about the hospital's scholarship program, Zaria said. Calum was proud. She was handling everything so well. Later, as they danced, he said, You're a natural at this. People just want to be heard and respected, she said. Even rich people? He asked. She thought, money changes people, but deep down, everyone wants connection. Even you. Why do you think that? You paid me to have dinner with you. You invited me here. You could have brought anyone, but you chose your housekeeper. Salem tensed. I chose someone I like talking to. Why? She pressed. He wasn't sure of the answer. Because you're honest, you don't want anything from me, except a paycheck. Is that all you want? He asked. Zaria looked away. I should want more, but money pays for nursing school. Money keeps the lights on. As the evening ended, Telem handed her an envelope with her payment. Thank you, she said, but something felt off. Is something wrong? No, it's just... She hesitated. It feels different now, taking money from you. Why? Because we've spent time together. Because I know you better. It changes things. Would you have come tonight without payment? I don't know, she said. Probably not. It would seem too much like... Like what? Like a date, she said softly. The words hung in the air between them. Salem looked at Zaria, waiting. Would that be so bad? Calum asked in a soft voice. Zaria stepped back. Yes, you're my boss, Salem. You live in a world I don't understand. And this arrangement... She pointed to the envelope. It keeps things simple. You pay me, I do my job. That's all. Is that all this is to you? Just a job? Caleb asked. Zaria looked away. It has to be. Salem felt his chest tighten at her words. What if I want more than that? Then you should find someone from your world, she said quietly. Someone who fits into your life, not your housekeeper. She turned and walked to her car, leaving Caleb standing in the doorway. He felt the weight of her words like a heavy blanket. Inside his big, empty mansion, he poured himself a drink and tried to understand his feelings. Zaria was right. They were from different worlds. Any relationship beyond boss and worker would be messy and hard. It would probably end badly. But he couldn't stop thinking about her smile, the way she felt in his arms when they danced, and how she saw the loneliness behind his rich life. For the first time in years, Caleb wanted something his money couldn't buy. He wanted Zaria to see him as more than her rich boss. He wanted her to choose him, not because he paid her, but because she wanted to. The next Monday, Caleb stayed at work late. He told himself it was because of an important business deal, but he knew the real reason: he was avoiding Zaria. Their last conversation had left him confused about what he wanted. When he finally came home, the house was dark and quiet. In the kitchen, he found his dinner covered in the fridge with a note. Chicken piccata. Heat for 2 minutes. No friendly message, just instructions. She was drawing the line again, keeping things professional. For the next 2 weeks, Selim made sure he left before Zaria arrived and came home after she was gone. He threw himself into work, staying at the office until midnight. His assistant noticed. I've never seen you work this hard before, she said. If only she knew why. But avoiding Zaria came with a cost. His house felt emptier than ever. The meals she left for him became his only connection to her. He looked forward to her notes, searching for any warmth in her words. There was none. One Friday evening, Selim's phone rang. It was Dr. Alden from the hospital. Caleb, I'm glad I caught you, the older man said. I wanted to follow up about your interest in our hospital expansion. Of course, Selim replied in a businesslike tone. I've been meaning to call you. Great. We're having a small tour and lunch tomorrow. I'd love for you to come. Your friend from the gala, Zaria, was it? Seemed interested. Maybe she'd like to join us? Caleb hesitated. I'm not sure if she's available. That's a shame, Dr. Alden said. She mentioned wanting to become a nurse. This could be a good opportunity for her. After hanging up, Selim sat in silence. He hadn't spoken to Zaria in weeks, except for short texts about household chores. Seeing her again made his heart race. Before he could overthink, he sent her a text. Dr. Alden invited us to tour the hospital tomorrow morning. Interested? Her reply was quick. Us? He invited you. Selim replied, yes, a long pause. Then she texted, what time? 10 a.m. I can pick you up. Another pause. I'll meet you there. Still keeping her distance, Selim thought, I'll text you the address. That night, Caleb barely slept. He kept thinking about what to say to her. The next morning, Selim arrived early at the hospital. He waited anxiously in the lobby. When Zaria walked in, he forgot to breathe. She wore a simple blue dress and a white sweater. Her hair was down. She looked younger, happier. You came, he said, relieved. I came to see the hospital, she said, keeping her distance. Dr. Alden was kind to invite me. Caleb nodded. He should be here soon. As if on cue, Dr. Alden appeared. Caleb, Miss Santos, thank you for coming. We're just waiting for a few more people, then we'll begin. The next hour was spent touring the hospital. Zaria was fascinated, asking smart questions that impressed the doctors. You've done your research, Selim whispered as they walked. She nodded. I've been reading about emergency care. It's amazing how hospital design helps save lives. Her passion was clear. Selim felt more determined than ever to help her reach her dream. During lunch with the hospital board, Selim spoke about the need to train nurses. Zaria looked surprised. He usually only cared about business deals. After lunch, Dr. Alden pulled Selim aside. I take it we can count on your support for the expansion? Yes, Selim said. But I want to help with something else too. The nursing scholarship program. I want to donate. Dr. Alden smiled. That's wonderful. We can set up a scholarship in your name. Calum glanced at Zaria, who was talking to a nurse. Let's discuss it next week. As the event ended, Salem walked up to Zaria. Can I drive you home? She hesitated. I can take the bus. Please, he said. I want to talk. After a pause, she nodded. All right. In the car, there was silence. Finally, Salem said, You were amazing in there. Thank you, she said, looking out the window. Is that the kind of hospital you'd like to work in? She smiled. Any nurse would be lucky to work there, but it's not about the fancy equipment. I just want to help people. Her kindness surprised him. In his world, people only cared about money and power. I've missed talking to you, he admitted suddenly. Zaria turned to him, eyes cautious. Calum, I know, I'm your boss. We come from different worlds, but avoiding you has been hard. You were avoiding me? She asked, amused. Leaving before you arrived, coming home late? Yes, I was. She laughed. I thought you were just busy avoiding you, very efficiently. She shook her head, smiling. I don't know how to do this, Calum confessed. I want to spend time with you, not as my employee, just as you. She looked down. That's complicated. I need this job. You won't lose it, no matter what. She hesitated. People make promises when they want something. Those promises don't always last. Salem sighed. One date, no fancy dinners, just something normal. After a long pause, she nodded. One date, he smiled. Saturday at 3, casual, no tuxedos. She laughed. See you then. As Zaria walked toward her building, Salem watched her go. He already missed her and counted the hours until Saturday. The next few days went by quickly. Salem was excited and planning for their date. He wanted to give Zaria a normal date, but he wasn't sure how. He was used to fancy dinners, expensive gifts, and vacations. Finally, he called his best friend, Jackson. Jackson was the only friend from his old life before he became rich. He still treated Salem like a regular person. Let me get this straight, Jackson said after hearing Calum's problem. You like your housekeeper and need help acting normal? I'm not dating her yet. Salem said, I just need ideas for a simple but special date. Jackson laughed. Only you would make this complicated. Just keep it simple. There's an art festival this weekend at Carson Park. There will be food trucks, artists, and live music. It's fun and casual. Salem couldn't remember the last time he went to a public event like that. Are you sure? He asked. Trust me, Jackson said. There's plenty to see, good food, and you can talk while walking around. It's perfect. Saturday came with nice weather. It was sunny but not too hot. Calum picked his most casual clothes, dark jeans and a button-down shirt. Even in casual clothes, he still looked fancy. When he picked Zaria up, he felt nervous. He was always confident, but with Zaria, his money and power didn't matter. Zaria came out wearing a yellow dress and a denim jacket. Her hair was in a braid. She looked beautiful in a simple way. You look great, Calum said as she got in the car. Thanks, she said, looking a little shy. So do you. Very normal, he joked. I even left my cane and top hat at home. She laughed, relaxing a bit. Where are we going? Carson Park. There's an art festival. We can walk around and try food from the trucks. Is that normal enough? Her eyes lit up. That sounds perfect. I read about it, but didn't know if I'd have time to go. The park was full of people, families, couples, and friends. Artists had booths showing paintings, pottery, and jewelry. Food trucks sold tacos, ice cream, and more. Salem noticed how happy Zaria was. She looked at different artworks, explaining what she liked about them. She enjoyed both traditional and modern styles. She stopped at a booth with handmade ceramic mugs. Each mug had beautiful designs of nature. These are so pretty, she said, picking one up. Do you want one? Salem asked. She hesitated, then put it down. Maybe another time. Salem made a mental note to buy one for her later. They walked to a small stage where a band played music. People danced in the grass. Are you hungry? Calum asked. Yes. Those tacos smell amazing, Zaria said. They stood in line at a food truck. Selim enjoyed the simple experience of waiting with others. No one recognized him. No one treated him differently because of his money. He felt like a normal person. "This is nice," he said as they sat on the grass to eat. "Being anonymous?" Zarya asked. "Yes," he admitted. "People treat you differently when they know you have money. They either want something or dislike you for it. Rarely do they see you as just a person." She thought for a moment. "Is that why you hired me for your birthday? Because I didn't know who you were?" "No," Selim said. "You did know who I was, but you treated me the same as anyone else. You were respectful, but not trying to impress me." She smiled. "That's just called being professional." "It's rare," Selim said, "and it made me curious about you." "And what have you learned?" she asked playfully. "That you love helping others. You're practical but not negative. You love your cat, mystery books, and mugs with flowers on them." She laughed. "You've been paying attention." "I have," he said softly. "What about you? What should I know about Selim, the man, not the millionaire?" He thought for a moment. "I love old jazz music. I play piano, though not as often as I should, and I read history books before bed, and I've been lonely for most of my life, even when surrounded by people." Zuria's expression softened. "Thank you for telling me that." "It's easy to be honest with you," Selim said. "You don't judge." "Everyone has their struggles," she said. "Even millionaires." As it got dark, festival lights made the park glow. A new band played slow, romantic music. Couples danced. "Would you like to dance?" Selim asked. Zuria hesitated, then took his hand. "Yes, I think I would." They danced close together. It was simple, sweet, and perfect. "This has been the best day," Salem whispered. Zaria looked up at him. "It really has." Salem slowly leaned down. Zaria didn't pull away. Their lips met in a soft kiss. When they pulled back, both were breathless. "Was that okay?" he asked nervously. She smiled. "More than okay." They stayed at the festival until it ended. At her apartment door, Zaria said, "I had a wonderful time." "Me too," Salem said. "Better than any fancy event I've been to." She laughed. "That's not a high bar." "No, it is now," he said seriously. "Nothing will compare to today." She hesitated. "Salem, this was lovely, but we still need to figure out what this means. I work for you. That makes things complicated." "I know," he said, "but I want to make this work, whatever it takes." She kissed him quickly. "We'll talk soon. Good night, Salem." As Salem drove home, he realized his mansion felt empty. He wanted Zaria in his life, not as an employee, but as an equal. He searched online about nursing scholarships. He had an idea to help Zaria without making her feel like a charity case. On Monday, he waited in the kitchen for Zaria. When she arrived, she smiled shyly. "Good morning." "Good morning," he said, handing her coffee the way she liked it. "About Saturday," she began. "I had an amazing time," Caleb said quickly. "Me too," she admitted, blushing. "But it makes things complicated." "What if you didn't work for me anymore?" he asked. Her face fell. "Are you firing me?" "No," he said. "I want to help you with nursing school, not as a gift, but as an investment." She frowned. "I can't take money from you." He looked at Zaria and said, "Listen to me. The hospital is giving more scholarships to help students. I already planned to give them money. But what if some of that money made a special scholarship? You could apply for it. You'd have to earn it on your own, but it would help you start school sooner." Zaria looked at him. "Are you serious?" "Yes," Salem said. "I was going to give money anyway, but this way it would mean even more." She took a deep breath. "And what about us? Where does that leave us?" Caleb stepped closer. "That depends on what you want. But if you don't work for me anymore, we can see where this goes, without the boss and worker problem." Zaria put her coffee down. "I still need money while I go to school. I can't just stop working." "There are other jobs," Caleb said. "Maybe a part-time job at the hospital. Dr. Alden seemed to like you." She nodded. "I need to think about it. This is a big change." "Of course," Caleb said. "Take your time." For 2 weeks, things stayed the same but different. Zaria still cleaned Caleb's big house, but now there were small touches and looks between them. In the evenings, they had dinner or went on walks, trying to figure out what they were to each other. Selim met with Dr. Alden and the hospital board to talk about his donation. He made sure Zaria had to qualify by herself. Dr. Alden smiled. This will help many students. That's the goal, Caleb said. Zaria would be a great nurse. Dr. Alden nodded. She made a great impression on our team. We'd love to have her. Also, we have jobs for nursing students. If she's interested, tell her to send her resume. That night, Selim told Zaria about the job. She smiled but was careful. It sounds too perfect. Will you apply? He asked. She nodded. Yes, but I need to get this by myself. No favors. I told them the scholarship is fair. No one will know I gave the money. She squeezed his hand. Thank you for understanding. They sat in silence, watching kids play nearby. Salem liked how easy it felt to just be with her. Then he reached into his pocket. I got something for you. She opened the small package. It was a ceramic mug with wildflowers painted on it. Caleb, she whispered, it's beautiful. I wanted you to have something from our first real date. She smiled, as if I could forget. A month later, Zaria got the scholarship. It paid for her school and books. She also got the hospital job in the emergency room. Her last day cleaning Caleb's house was happy and sad. Caleb followed her around, talking. She laughed. You're hovering. I'm supervising, he joked, making sure you do your job right. She shook her head. You need to hire someone new. I can suggest a service. Salem frowned. It won't be the same. Zaria put down her duster. No, it won't, but it's better for both of us. Salem nodded. He knew she was right. I have something for you. A goodbye gift? She gave him a small package. Inside was a key on a keychain with the letter A. A key to your apartment? He asked, surprised. She nodded. Now that I don't work here, maybe you'd like to visit me sometimes. It's small, not fancy. Caleb kissed her. I love it. Thank you. Weeks passed and they found a new way to be together. Selim spent time in Zaria's world. He met her friends, ate at her favorite places, and helped her study. He liked her small apartment and even got used to her cat, Cosmo. Zaria went to business events with Caleb, now as his girlfriend. She stayed true to herself and people liked her. She's special, said a woman at a charity event. She found me, Caleb said, and I'm lucky. 3 months later, Salem felt different. His big house felt empty without Zaria. He spent more time at her place. One night, as they sat on her balcony, Cosmo in her lap, he said, I'm thinking about selling my house. Zaria looked at him. Why? It's too big, too empty. It never felt like home, just a place to show off my success. He took her hand. Maybe we could find something together? She blinked. Are you asking me to move in with you? I'm asking if we can build a life together. The house is just a detail. Her eyes filled with tears. Salem, we haven't been dating long. Are you sure? He nodded. I've never been more sure. Unless you don't feel the same? She shook her head. It's not that. I just never thought this would happen to me. Meeting you, having these chances, sometimes I feel like I'll wake up and it'll be a dream. Salem pulled her close. It's not a dream, and I'm the lucky one. Before you, I had everything money could buy, but nothing that mattered. She leaned against him. If we do this, I want something simple, not too fancy. Whatever you want, he promised, as long as there's room for Cosmo. She laughed. He would insist on that. They started looking for houses and found one near the hospital. It was big enough to have friends over, but cozy. It had a garden Zaria loved, and an office for Caleb. Moving day came on a sunny Saturday. Zaria's things looked tiny next to Caleb's furniture. Together, they decided what to keep and what to give away, making a home that felt like both of theirs. As they unpacked, Salem found the ceramic mug he gave her. It was wrapped carefully. You kept this safe, he said. Zaria smiled. It was the first thing you gave me just to make me happy. She placed it on the nightstand. It belongs here. Our nightstand, he said, loving the sound of it. That evening, they sat on their new porch swing, watching the lights turn on in the houses around them. Happy? Caleb asked. Very, Zuria said, leaning into him. Though I can't believe how much has changed in 1 year. Selim laughed. From cleaning my floors to sharing my life, it's been quite a journey. Zuria grinned. I'm still cleaning your floors, just fewer of them. Salem turned to Zaria, his face suddenly very serious. I have one more thing for you, a gift for our new home. From his pocket, he took out a small velvet box. Zaria's eyes grew big as he opened it. Inside was a beautiful ring, not too shiny, but just right. A simple diamond sat in the middle with little blue stones on each side. Caleb, she whispered. I wasn't planning to do this today, he said, sounding a little nervous. I had a big plan for next week, a nice dinner, music, everything romantic, but right now, sitting here in our home, it just feels right. Salem got off the swing and went down on one knee. Zaria Santos, you changed my life in ways I never imagined. Before I met you, people only saw my money and my big house. But you saw me, the real me. You taught me that love isn't something you can buy. It's something you earn by being honest and open. Tears filled Zaria's eyes as he went on. I know we haven't been together for a long time, but I have never been so sure about anything in my life. I want to build a future with you. I want to support your dreams, just like you've supported mine. You've shown me what really matters. He held the ring up. Will you marry me? Zaria's hands shook as she touched his face gently. You know what people will say. They'll say I'm only with you for your money. They'll say you're going through some kind of crisis. Caleb looked straight into her eyes. I don't care what anyone says. I know the truth. We know the truth. She smiled, tears rolling down her cheeks. Yes, Salem Vasconello, I will marry you. Salem slid the ring onto her finger. At that moment, he felt happier than ever before. Just a while ago, he had been lonely, eating a birthday dinner all by himself. But now he was with the woman he loved, and everything felt right. Zaria looked at the ring on her finger and then at him. I never thought that the man who paid me to have dinner with him would become the love of my life. Caleb smiled. And I never thought that the woman I hired to clean my house would end up cleaning out my heart. He pulled her close and kissed her. Inside the house, their cat, Cosmo, watched them from the window, his tail flicking happily. The sun went down, but they didn't notice. They were too busy thinking about their future together. 6 months later, Zaria stood in a small room at the back of a garden. She was wearing a simple but beautiful white dress. Her aunt carefully placed a veil on her head, and her friend Elena handed her a bouquet of wildflowers. The same kind of flowers were painted on a special mug in their home. Are you ready? Her aunt asked, her eyes full of happy tears. Zaria nodded. More than ready. Outside, their friends and family sat waiting. At the front, Selim stood with his best friend, Jackson. Caleb had never looked so happy in his life. When Zaria appeared, walking on her aunt's arm, Caleb's breath caught. She looked so beautiful. Their eyes met, and they both smiled. The wedding was simple and full of love. They had written their own vows, promises not just to love each other, but to always be there for one another, to grow together, and to be partners in life. Caleb held her hands. You came into my life when I needed you the most, not as someone who worked for me, but as someone who taught me what real happiness is. I used to think being rich meant having lots of money, but you showed me that real wealth comes from love and kindness. Zaria's voice was steady as she said her vows. You showed me that dreams don't have to stay just dreams. With courage and love, they can become real. I promise to always stand beside you, to remind you of what truly matters when life gets hard, and to love you for who you are. They exchanged rings and became husband and wife. Everyone cheered. Dr. Alden and his wife wiped away tears. Zaria's friends from nursing school threw flower petals in the air. The reception was held in the same garden. Twinkling lights hung from the trees, making everything look magical. Unlike the big fancy parties Calum used to go to, this one was different. It was warm, personal, and filled with joy. Zaria sat next to Eleanor Winters, a woman who had become a good friend. "You've changed him completely," Eleanor said, watching Selim laugh with Jackson. "I've known him for 15 years, and I've never seen him this happy." Zaria smiled. "We've changed each other. He gave me the courage to follow my dreams, and I showed him how to be himself, beyond his business and money." "That's what makes a great marriage," Eleanor said with approval. "A fair trade." Later, as Calum and Zaria danced together for the first time as husband and wife, he held her close. "Do you have any regrets?" he asked softly. She looked up at him, her eyes shining. "Only that I spent all that time cleaning your house when we could have been dancing like this." Calum laughed. "I think we needed that time. You got to see the real me, and I learned that some things, like love, can't be bought." She smiled. "Exactly. Like love." He kissed her gently. "Although technically, I did pay for our first date." Zaria laughed, just like she had that first time in his kitchen. "Best money you ever spent." "No question," Calum said, spinning her in a slow circle. "The best investment of my life." As the night ended, they said goodbye to their guests and walked to a small cottage on the property. It would be their home for the night, before they left for their honeymoon. Sitting together on the porch, they looked up at the stars. Zaria rested her head on Selim's shoulder, his arm wrapped around her. "I finally understand what my mother always told me," she said softly. "That being rich isn't about having lots of money, it's about having enough of what truly matters." Zaria looked up at him. "Right now, I feel rich in all the ways that count." Calum kissed her forehead, understanding completely. For years, he had collected money, thinking it would make him happy. But it took meeting Zaria and paying her to spend time with him to see what he had been missing all along. "I love you," he said simply. "I love you too," she replied. No payment needed. They laughed together under the stars, knowing they had something money could never buy. A love that had started in the strangest way, but had turned into something they would never regret. In the years that followed, Calum kept running his businesses, but now his priorities were different. Zaria finished nursing school with honors and worked in the hospital's emergency room, helping people every day. Of course, they faced challenges, small fights, different opinions, the struggles of mixing their different worlds. But through it all, they stayed honest with each other and never forgot what had brought them together in the first place. And every year on Salem's birthday, they had a special dinner, not in a fancy restaurant, but at home. Zaria would give him a single candle to blow out and tell him to make a wish. But they both knew his greatest wish had already come true. He had found someone who saw him for who he really was and loved him anyway. And what had started as a simple deal had turned into the greatest love story of their lives. Thanks for watching. If you liked the story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Check out our other videos too. See you in the next one.